everybody, welcome to Nostalgia Goggles of Horror, and today we're continuing with our Luigi's Mansion Marathon, because it kind of is one. Today we're going to be talking about Luigi's Mansion 2 and asking the question if it's actually worth it at the end of the day, because this got a remake quite recently. The remake's actually why we're doing this.
Oh, absolutely. Hi everyone, I'm here again. It is I, Olivia, the Phantom of the Ink, and I am here to help talk about Luigi's Mansion.
Was it Phantom of the Page last time?
I've done a different one each time we've done this.
Okay, well, this intro had to be re-recorded because we talked too long, so let's try to keep this one short. I initially didn't like this game when it came out.
Yeah, me neither. I really wanted to when this came out because I had so much love for the first one, but I found this one to be disappointing after I beat it the first time it came out.
So with that being said, let's find out if it's actually worth playing or not.
Let's get into it.
Because we can't be wrong.
Yeah, we absolutely can.
So, let's get right into it.
So the story of Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon is Professor Egad is studying Evershade Valley, a valley where a strange object called the Dark Moon hangs in the sky. The Dark Moon calms the ghosts that live in the valley, meaning ghosts can peacefully coexist with those who come to the valley. However, to everyone's absolute shock, something breaks the Dark Moon and scatters the pieces through Evershade Valley, causing the ghosts to rampage. Professor Egad summons Luigi to help him fix the Dark Moon and catch the ghosts of the valley and figure out who could have possibly done this. Yeah, it was King Boo. Mario's been captured again, and it's a true sequel, and everything comes full circle.
I don't even know I'm here at this point. I thought I had something clever to say, but I really don't, so. On to the gameplay? So the gameplay of Luigi's Mansion 2 is bite-sized Luigi's Mansion, I think is the best way to put it. It is. It is the bite-sized Luigi's Mansion. It does do definitely new things, like it added the strobe light. You can also upgrade your Poltergust through money, you collect gems throughout this game. You also find toads throughout this game, but that's something you did in the first one. But this one's a little more like, you have to guide them somewhere.
Yeah, finding the toads was a little more dire in this game. Toads in Luigi's Mansion 1 were just lost in the mansion, and they would be save points for you once you just helped comfort them.
Yeah, in this one there is no real save points. Actually, that's kind of the issue with this game, is that when you die, you have to redo the whole ass mission, which kind of sucks, especially for a handheld. And I think that that's something I really want to push here. This is definitely a handheld version of Luigi's Mansion, and part of that is good in some places, part of that is bad in other places, because the best way to describe how the gameplay loop of this one is its missions, and those missions are just a series of inconveniences after inconveniences. There's a lot of times in this game where the gameplay asks you to do something where you kind of give a little bit of a sigh afterwards because it's just prolonged, right?
Yeah, it doesn't help that Luigi also looks fed up half of the time as well.
For instance, the reason why I'm saying this is there's a lot of times in the game where it's like, hey, we have this puzzle piece. Oh, this ghost breaks it. Okay, find it in the next mission. Okay, it's like there's a whole bunch of like, the missions don't feel that good, in my opinion. It feels annoying when it asks you to do these things that really could have just been done in one go. But I feel like that might have came from it being on the handheld of why they did this. They broke these missions up and they probably wanted your money to be worth it. And in truth, I think that kind of sucks. I would have loved one explorable mansion, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I feel like this is where we get into that opinion versus actual programming thing, because we're not programmers.
Right.
So I don't know how much the 3DS could have handled, but even then, that's not a good argument, because nowadays, Luigi's Mansion runs almost perfectly on the 3DS, so I don't know exactly why they chose it the way they did. And the other thing that's mind-blowing is the gameplay itself is great.
No, yeah, this is the interesting thing about Luigi's Mansion 2, or Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. 2 takes it to a whole new level where it is very much, like you said, bite-sized Luigi's Mansion. Instead of one big mansion, it's 5 smaller locations, each broken down into bite-sized chunks, these little missions. It contributes very much to this stop-and-go gameplay style.
Which in some cases is fine. I don't mind it when it's you're exploring the mansion. I just don't like it when it asks you to backtrack in annoying ways, right?
Agreed.
When you just solve a puzzle and then the game breaks the puzzle and goes, find it again, I don't like that. And it seems to be, throughout my experience, that's what was happening the most. And what frustrated me the most is that the gameplay has evolved so much. From your poltergust being allowed for a higher suction to be given in this game, so when you're pulling the ghosts, eventually you can press the A button and it'll suck them in more, and I appreciate that. That feels great. It makes the gameplay loop faster. I like the fact that you're able to use items with the poltergust, such as catching things on fire or holding things and shooting it or yada yada. I enjoy that. There is a lot more that is given with the poltergust, and there's a lot more given with the light. There's a lot more given with items and yada yada, but it just really feels like the stop and go just really ruins it for me.
I agree, but that is I think part of the frustration is that the gameplay feels so good.
Because when you're in it, it feels great. I absolutely love sucking up ghosts. I absolutely love the bosses in this game to a degree. Those are also hit and miss, but when they hit, they're just great. One of my favorite ones is the graveyard ladies.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh yeah. The graveyard ladies actually were we're actually a good fun trio to do.
Frustrating but fun, and I feel like those are kind of hints at something I liked in the last one, which are the portrait ghosts, but those kind of aren't here in this game. Instead, it is you traversing your way to get to the Dark Moon piece and fighting one specific boss that kind of is frustrating too. A lot of the end bosses to me are just kind of either, once again, inconvenient, or just the spider is the perfect example of that.
Yeah. It's one of those things of, fighting the bosses in Luigi's Mansion the first time around wasn't rocket science. A lot of times it was just hit them with something to stun them and then get through the thing, or dodge the obstacles and then do the thing. It wasn't hard, but there's something a little bit frustrating about the bosses in Dark Moon, where it feels like you have to kind of jump through a few extra hoops to get through them.
Which is funny because in the next game you have to jump through hoops, but they make it a little bit more fun. I think maybe the biggest problems that come from this game are on the hardware that it's on, which is not an excuse because this game also came out for the Switch.
Yeah, for the most part, it kept the same exact stuff from the first time that they came out.
Which is nice, and I think that the upscaling of it is great, but that's more in the presentation. And I really want to talk, this one's going to rely on the presentation for me, because the gameplay itself, the solid gameplay of Luigi's Mansion is solid. I really like traversing the levels themselves. Luigi feels better than he ever has. I really like the way that this game plays, but I just really do not like the mission set, and that's really all I have to say about the game. All in all, I'd like to talk longer about it, and if you have something you want to say, definitely, but I think the issues, one of the other big issues we have, it has nothing to do with the gameplay, unfortunately, because I think that's something else that kind of sucks, is that the traversal is why I came to Luigi's Mansion 1, and it not being there, it kind of having the stop and go is one, what stops it from being scary, and two, what just kind of doesn't work. When you're getting into it, it stopped immediately. So all in all, I think that that's kind of all I have to say about the gameplay. There are some other things that keep it different. For instance, you can get golden bones, which give you a second go.
Yeah, the golden bones act as a revive or a 1-up, where you don't have to quit a level and after you lose. You just get revived and can keep going. Normally, if you fail a mission, you have to start over from the beginning of that mission.
So with that being said, though, there is another way to play Luigi's Mansion outside of the two. And I'll talk more about it in accessibility, but I gotta talk about it here. There is an arcade version, and I feel like that might just have been what the game should have been.
Honestly, yeah.
Me and you have played that before,
Yeah.
and I like how more accessible it is now. But I really had fun with that.
Yeah.
I know that that could have not been what it is, but that's kind of what this whole experience feels like. It feels like it could have just been an arcade game.
Yeah, a la like House of the Dead, where like the mission style gameplay wouldn't have interfered with it. That does suit the gameplay we get in Dark Moon more, and the arcade version is a lot of fun if you ever find it in the wild and have the chance to play it.
But with that being said, though, I think that this game definitely would have been better if they stuck to that arcadey, fast-paced feeling, where instead of it being the missions that are slow and droning, it would have been fun if they were just a little faster, snappier. And that's really all I have to say about it. Outside of that, it's still Luigi's Mansion, but it's Luigi's Mansion with a lot more stop and go.
Yep. So with that being said, let's move on to presentation.
So when it gets right down to it, I can actually see where a lot of people would be upset with the presentation change. Luigi's Mansion 2 decided to change almost everything about what made Luigi's Mansion Luigi's Mansion. It got rid of the darker aesthetic and made it a little bit more goofy. It realistically, that's really it. That's really it. It got rid of the aesthetic, and I think that there's nothing wrong with that. If you like the new aesthetic, that's fine, but I think that it's something that is kind of really hard to get over for some people. And when I mean aesthetic, I mean all of it. Music, visuals, and argumentatively, even to a degree, gameplay, because the ghosts don't do the same things. They don't react the same way, and that's just inevitable, because even down to the portrait ghosts, with their absence, it just doesn't all work out.
Yeah, this was a very different version of Luigi's Mansion we were walking into, and I never understood why a lot of the changes happened. I never really, but to me, I've got to keep in mind, I was thoroughly desensitized to the early version of the game, so maybe they were too creepy and they wanted to reach a wider audience. I don't know. It never made sense to me. But from a presentation standpoint, as much as I appreciate the new locations, I've never been too wild about the way the new ghosts look. The goofy aesthetic I can get over, but it took me until 3.
Now, with that being said, though, I actually am going to play devil's advocate here and argue the point of, I don't mind it. I actually do like the new locations. My issue with the game has nothing to do with the presentation, in truth. I see why they went with some of the ways they did, and in truth, it might just be because it was on the 3DS. Now, argumentatively, you can say, well, Chris, no, the 3DS did a really good job at Luigi's Mansion. Yes, but that was later in the console's lifespan when they knew that they can do more. I do like what they did with this game. I do like the callbacks to Luigi's Mansion. For instance, the theme of Luigi's Mansion 2 is constantly running. It is the same theme, just with different instrumentation, which is great.
Yeah.
It's actually a little bit more than Luigi's Mansion originally was. The ghosts are not memorable to me, but that also, once again, might be due to the limitations. And I don't know. See, the biggest problem with gaming is that I can't just sit back and research it. I have to ask developers, and I don't know who to 100% ask. And even then, there probably is some kind of forum or something that explains why the game is what it is. But in truth, I don't care. I do like the multiple mansions. I like how they look. I like how they feel to a degree. But I can see where an older person wouldn't, and that's why you're here. You're somebody that enjoyed the first one, so it does make sense that you feel this way, because it does feel like they've foregone everything that made the first one the way it is, because this game is not creepy, and it is definitely not the same, but visually and audibly, I cannot say that this game is bad or worse. It's just a big ask, but then again, that's kind of how the series goes sometimes. Mario has been known to kind of forego the past. Just look at the original Mario 1 and 2, and somebody will say, well, that's Doki Doki Panic, but still, same issue. Same thing with Mario Sunshine and so on and so forth. Mario as a franchise, including Luigi, has been ever changing, and I think that, yes, I would have preferred it to be creepy too, and do I absolutely love this? No, but I can see why they did it, I guess, or I can kind of play devil's advocate for it.
I understand. When this game first came out, I had a really hard time. I really disliked the change. Now that I've gone back and played it, yes, I am still a fan of Luigi's Mansion 1. That aesthetic, the creepiness, the kind of overall unsettlingness, I miss that, but I'm not gonna hold it against Dark Moon. Dark Moon looks fine, it's just not my cup of tea.
Actually, I will hold it against it, because in the next game, they do what this one was trying to do, but better. I think the issue is not realistically the fact that the scariness is gone. It's not only that. I think the problem is that it's generic.
Yeah, I think that is a big part of it. A lot of, for example, as much as it's fun to go to other locations, the other locations aren't super exciting to look at for the most part.
They're very different. They are very varied, but it's just, I don't know. That's really it. It's just, it doesn't really matter. One mansion was enough, and I think that they were trying something new, and for me, it didn't work. But if you enjoy it, presentation-wise, I can see where you're coming from.
Agreed. So, with that being said, let's move on to accessibility.
So when it gets right down to it, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon came out for the 3DS and the Nintendo Switch. Crazy. But the 3DS version will set you back $12 to $30, and get the $12 version. Come on now. The Nintendo Switch version will set you back $60. Nintendo, I love you. You have me in a chokehold, but I'm gonna be real with you. Why? Unlike the 3DS version, where it's cleaned up, and also they have an altered story to a degree, not a big one.
Yeah, with Luigi's Mansion 1.
Yes, but with that being said, because Luigi is introduced in that one, I kind of don't understand why the Switch version is $60.
No, I don't understand why Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon was released for $60. It's one of those things of, yeah, I guess I don't get it. I'm gonna be honest, I don't get it. Yeah, they cleaned up the graphics, but that's about it.
I have to argue the question is, did they? Because it already looked good on the 3DS. So, like, it's like, you didn't really do much.
Yeah, I'm really giving giving Nintendo the benefit of the doubt here. But yeah, you could get it for a really, really good price for the 3DS right now.
And I feel like that's probably the best way to get it, in all honesty.
Honestly, yeah. The gameplay works really well both ways, but
debatable. But with that being said, let's talk about the goods and the bads.
For sure. Despite my grievances with Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon's presentation, I will say that I appreciate what this game did for the gameplay. It had a lot of really solid concepts, like multiple locations, and a lot of the stuff that we carried over into 3, like the strobe bulb and the powered up suction.
Heck, I even like the idea of using the vacuum with other things. There is a plant that works like a balloon, and there's a lot of stuff that Luigi's Mansion does that with. The Poltergust is used more of a tool in this one as the game goes on, but I gotta be honest with you, I think that this game is good. I like the gameplay, I like the aesthetic to a degree, but it's hard. Because if this was a good and the bad section, if it was both, I could say more. But I definitely do have to say that I agree to a degree. I like how this game definitely plays. I like how it set the groundwork for the next Luigi's Mansion game, you know?
Oh, definitely.
I like fighting the ghosts a lot. I like traversing the levels. I realistically like the aesthetic of this game. It's not as memorable as, you know, but it definitely has an aesthetic. The ghost, on the other hand, I can't talk about, but the actual levels themselves, memorable. I like it.
It's like, yeah, I can agree with that. I will admit that, yeah, this game had a lot to offer as far as gameplay went, and that I appreciate for what it did for Luigi's Mansion 3. That being said, I just don't want to keep repeating what you said.
Yeah, let's go to the bets. So when it gets right down to it, one of the things that I feel definitely holds this game back, in truth, is the fact that this game has padding. That's the biggest reason why I don't like the missions in this game. It took a little bit of feeling it out, but that's pretty much the reason. This game feels like it is constantly padding, and when it does that, it doesn't feel good on a handheld console, particularly, because when a game has this level of padding, it kind of, you know...
It creates that series of inconveniences you kind of mentioned.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the game itself has that, so whatever. But the reason I'm complaining about padding is because we're dealing with a battery life on this console. And this has happened before, where, like, a video game that I actually do enjoy, Pokemon Sun and Moon, one of the biggest issues I have with that is cutscenes go for so long. I actually had that problem meeting up with Sun Galeo, right?
Yep.
Where I'm sitting there watching, you know, my battery, the DS flash, hoping for the cutscene to end because I wanted to see it. I don't know, I don't remember if I could skip it at the time, but that was my issue, and that's my issue with this game. And also, it's not just padding. It is actually, yeah, it is. That's just my issue. Because later levels, the last few levels are really good, but, like, it's crazy. Like, the game has some good missions, definitely, but there's also a lot of missions that I could have just been like, no, we don't need it.
Yeah, and I don't think that is owed to, like, the stop-and-go pacing created by the missions. So it's just really, like, it's just it's a circle. It fills itself in.
For sure. I feel like definitely there's more to it. Like, I could sit here and talk about how I don't like the aesthetic, but I feel like no matter what, and I do like the aesthetic, that's the issue, It's not as, like I said before in the other segment, it's not as memorable as Luigi's Mansion 1, and I'd even argue 3. And once again, I could see where that could be argued as well, because the last few levels, and whatever. Anyways, my point is, it's just padding. That's my issue with this one.
I can agree with that, for sure. Yeah. I think you've all made good points with that, and yep, I agree.
So yeah.
Alright. With that being said, let's move on to the final thoughts.
Yep.
So, does Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon hold up?
You just refuse to say 2, don't you?
Yeah. I don't know about you, but for me, I'm gonna go ahead and say no. I don't think, as much as I appreciate all the good stuff that Dark Moon did for the franchise, like Luigi's Mansion 3, I'm never going to touch this game again. There is nothing in heaven or earth that is going to make me go, yes, I want to play Dark Moon again. If it wasn't for this video, I probably never would have looked at it again. And it's like, I understand, like, there is a part of it that is my nostalgia talking, that is from me just loving the first one so much. But I just feel like this game is a little too frustrating to go back to when Luigi's Mansion 3 takes the good stuff from Luigi's Mansion 2 and just makes it so much better. So that's my personal verdict.
I feel like your mileage may vary. I can see where somebody that grew up with this game would enjoy it. I can see where if you started here you can enjoy it, but I don't know. I don't exactly know where to stand on this one, because a lot of people clearly must have liked this game. This game sold well. But I just don't know how people feel about this one. And is that what's fixing my rating? No, I feel like that there are things that people could like. I feel like, you know, my anxieties of the lack of a battery life on the DS is calmed by having the Switch version. I feel like somebody might like the tedium of it. Somebody might find it funny, because that's what I feel like it's trying to be, is it's trying to be comedical. But for me, I just take it as a, you know?
Yeah, Luigi wears his exhaustion on his sleeve in this one, and I feel that with my entire being.
And I feel like that might be funny to some people, but for me, it just is tiring. I feel like there's a lot of super good concepts, and I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of super good aesthetics that I really like about this game. It's not the first one, but then again, that's just inevitable. Of course, they wanted to go in a different direction, and that's fine. I like the new things they do with the Poltergust. I love Polterpup. He's better in the next game, but still, I like so much of this game, but when it gets right down to it, it's really just missions that bother me, and I don't know if that would bother everybody. I think that some people would be fine with it, and if that seems fine to you, sure. I think I would definitely recommend trying this game, but if you are going to try it, I definitely recommend trying it on the 3DS instead of buying it on the Switch. $50, $60, whatever, is a high price to try a game like this, right?
For sure.
Because there is such a, no matter, I think that's the problem. That's why it's a mileage may vary. There's a split here of where you can play it and go, no. You know, and with that possibility of not liking it, because if you're expecting Luigi's Mansion 1 or 3, I don't know if $60 is really worth it to make that jump.
Agreed.
But I believe the $12 and under is the best way to go. Even $20, $30, you know, perfectly fine for this game.
Absolutely.
Because, like I said, I feel like this is one of those try it out before you say you don't like it. Because, like I said, the mission structure might actually be better for you. I didn't say this in the good because I didn't want to go off on a tangent, but the mission structure might be good for some people to not get lost, you know? It definitely gives you more of a goal. It tells you what you're supposed to do. And I don't like it, but it might help some people out. They might get overly anxious with a whole mansion and getting frustrated with having to, you know, kind of figure out what key goes where. They might get frustrated with the way Luigi's Mansion 3 works. These games are all different enough where I feel like what you might like in one does not show up in the other, so much so that I have to give this game more of a leeway, right?
Yeah.
Is it leanway or leeway?
I always thought it was leeway.
Well, I think leanway makes sense too, because you give a little bit of a lean, you know, you're giving like a, whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. In the comments, tell me if I'm wrong or not. You're going to tell me anyways, because I feel like there's people that do like this game. And I'm not saying that this game is bad. I'm just saying it's not for me. So I definitely can say that I think it's a mileage may vary. But if you like it, I can see where you do.
Understandable, and I agree. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean that other people won't enjoy it. I just personally, I don't know. I just think the other two installations are so much better that I personally wouldn't bother with this one. But again, that's me.
In truth, I wouldn't either if I didn't have it on the thing. And, you know, I think the thing that's also great about this one is a fun thing about this one is it's okay to just not like a game. It's okay to start it, look what it did, and go, no. And that's kind of what I would have done too. As a person that enjoys gaming the way that I do, I wouldn't have beaten this game if not for this episode. Instead, I would have done what I did the first time, bought it for the collection, looked at it and said, oh, okay, I see what we did here, and then never touched it again. Now, with that being said, what is your favorite kind of spooky game? Any of them work here. We're kind of running at a loss here because episode 3 is such a kind of big one, so.
Yeah. What is your favorite spooky game, Chris?
It's not actually horror, but it's Castlevania.
Oh no, I totally get you. No, yeah, because that's what I thought when you were talking about spooky. I didn't think you were talking about like horror.
Well, no, when it gets right down to it, Castlevania is one of those series that like has 1 or 2 games that I don't like, but even then I kind of appreciate them. Like, is it Order of Ecclesia, right?
Yeah.
I love that one, and then I love Bloodlines and the DS sequel of that, and then Castlevania 4 is one of my favorites, alongside 3. Like Castlevania and Symphony of the Night, of course. Castlevania just is a series that continues to stay the same, but also improve upon itself, and when it does do something new, I appreciate it a lot, and I really would love to see Castlevania return in a positive way.
Oh, absolutely, I would love that. I'm really torn, because...
Yeah, it's Resident Evil.
That actually wasn't what I was gonna...
Bet you $20 is Resident Evil. The way you were looking at Resident Evil 1's remake and like gushing over it and the anxiety and the fun that you have for that series, we all know it's Resi. It is Resi but I think it's a very specific Resi for you. It's Resident Evil 1 to 4.
I do love me some Resident Evil 1 to 4, honestly. I will give you that. Yeah, I do love Resident Evil. I do love a not a straight up horror approach at things. I do love I love how wonky it gets. I love how it goes. It starts, okay, we're gonna do zombies, and then just immediately goes, oh yeah, and then there's all this other bullshit in our basement, you know?
Like, yeah. So the question is, so what was yours? Because I think it was Resident Evil, but that's just, you know, because I only say that because you get a weird glow whenever Resident Evil happens, and I think you were definitely sold on the remake of 2, but even then, from Resident Evil, the PS1, even how janky that was, I'm talking about aesthetically, you super were into Resident Evil. Resident Evil from... And it's funny because I think you rolled your eyes at 5 back in the day, but like, you realistically, the remakes and even going back to the originals seems to be something that ignites something weird in you.
It really does. It really, really does. No, when you asked me that question, initially I was debating between either saying Bloodborne or Cult of the Lamb, because I'm really into that right now, but... I
think another thing that also probably calls you to Resident Evil, and it's something that you don't want to admit, but I think it's the fact that you have female characters on a regular basis just being badasses, like Jill and Claire alone.
Jill, Claire, and Ada, yeah, for sure. And then honestly, yeah, I do love Resi, and yeah, they're having this kind of strong female representation. It means so much to me. And then also...
Which is the name of the game of your show.
Yeah! Pretty much.
Yeah.
So
not just strong female representation, but representation of all kinds.
Yup.
So.
That's the name of the game, baby.
Especially the symbiote kind. With that being said, sorry about the Resi. We can't get away from Resident Evil. We're gonna find some way to talk about it in 3, I bet you.
No, yeah.
With that being said, thanks for listening to our Resident Evil podcast for a second. And we'll see you guys next time here on Nostalgia Goggles in Luigi's Mansion 3. Yeah, I stole your outro.
Bye!